My name is Carter, but for most of my life, everyone just called me Sam. I'm 68 years old, and on what should have been a quiet, familiar moment, Christmas Eve, standing on my own front porch, everything finally became clear. The house was glowing from the inside. Warm lights, laughter, music drifting through the windows, and I was outside, locked out, holding my coat tighter than my dignity. My own son had turned the key. No shouting, no argument. Just a calm, deliberate decision that told me exactly where I stood in his life. I raised him in that house, paid for those walls, built the memories they were celebrating without me. And yet, on the coldest night of the year, I was treated like someone who had overstayed his welcome. Tonight, I'm going to tell you what really happened. How one locked door didn't end my story. It led me to another door my son forgot existed. A door filled with old records, quiet promises, and a truth that had been waiting for the right moment to be opened. But before I continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by the people you trusted the most? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. To everyone who listens, who shares their own stories, who reminds me I'm not invisible, thank you. You have no idea how much that means. And if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. This isn't just a channel. It's a place where stories like mine are finally told out loud. Now, let me take you back to the night my son locked me out and unknowingly handed me everything I needed. I arrived at 6:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I checked my watch twice, making sure I wasn't early. Philip had texted me that morning. Dinner at 7. Don't be late to my own house, but I didn't think much of it then. Philip had been stressed lately, short with me, distracted. His wife, Stephanie, kept saying he was dealing with business pressures. I believed her. I always believed them. The driveway was full. Philip's BMW, Stephanie's SUV, Andy's truck, Philip's best friend since kindergarten, the boy I taught to throw a football who called me Pops until he turned 30 and it suddenly stopped being cool. I parked on the street. Walking up that driveway felt normal, familiar. The same path I'd shoveled snow from every winter for 40 years. The same porch steps I'd rebuilt in 2003 after Belinda, my granddaughter, cracked the wood, jumping off them. I could smell the turkey through the door, hear Bing Crosby playing inside. White Christmas, my favorite. I rang the doorbell, waited, rang it again. Through the frosted glass panel beside the door, I saw movement. A shadow crossing the hallway. Someone was right there, maybe 10 feet away. I knocked. 3 solid raps. "Philip, it's Dad. I know I'm a few minutes early, but—" The shadow stopped, paused, then walked away. I stood there, hand still raised to knock again, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. Maybe they didn't hear me. Maybe the music was too loud. I tried the doorknob. Locked. That's when the first thread of something cold started unwinding in my chest. Not panic yet, just confusion, because I'd lived in this house since 1983. I'd never needed to knock, never needed permission to enter. I walked around to the side door, the one that led into the mudroom. We never locked it. Philip used to forget his keys all the time as a teenager, and I'd always told him, "Side door's always open." Locked. The back door, the one that opened into the kitchen, where I could now clearly see Stephanie moving around, pulling dishes from the cabinets I'd installed myself. Locked. I knocked on the glass, hard enough that she had to hear it. Stephanie looked up. Our eyes met through the window. She saw me. I know she did, because for just a second her expression flickered, something I couldn't quite read. Guilt? Annoyance? Then she turned back to the counter, reaching for a serving platter like I wasn't even there. That's when I understood. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. They knew I was out here. I walked back around to the front, my breath coming faster now, clouding in the December air. Through the living room window, I could see them all gathering. Philip laughing at something Andy said. Stephanie carrying in the turkey, Jaden, my 17-year-old grandson, on his phone, Belinda setting the table, her face serious, focused. A family dinner. My family. In my house. Without me. I called Philip's cell phone. It rang. I could hear it ringing inside, faintly through the walls. He pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen, at my name, and put it back without answering. I called Stephanie. Same thing. I texted Philip. I'm outside. The doors are locked. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, we're having a private family dinner tonight. It's better if you make other arrangements. I read that message 4 times, standing on my own porch, while my fingers went numb. Private family dinner. Other arrangements. I wasn't family anymore. I was another. The worst part wasn't the cold. It wasn't even the humiliation of standing outside like some stranger. It was the sound of them laughing inside, the clink of glasses, the warmth I could feel radiating through the door I'd hung myself in 1987, when Philip was still small enough to hand me nails from his little tool belt. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for my nose to start running. Long enough for a neighbor's car to slow down as they drove past, the driver staring at the old man on the porch in the cold. Long enough to feel every year of my 68 settling into my bones. But something else settled in too. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. Because standing there, watching my son celebrate Christmas without me, I finally stopped making excuses. Stopped telling myself Philip was just busy, just stressed, just going through a phase. He'd been pulling away for months, maybe years, and I'd let him, because confronting it meant admitting something I didn't want to face. My son didn't want me anymore. I turned away from that door, walked back to my car, hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. But before I left, I looked at the garage. My garage. The detached one I'd built in 1989, before Philip was even born. The one with the side door that was always stuck, that nobody ever used because the main door had an automatic opener. And I remembered something. Something I'd buried so deep in my memory that it took standing in the cold, cast out from my own life, to bring it back to the surface. That garage had a secret, and my son had no idea it existed. The side door to the garage was stuck, like always. I had to put my shoulder into it, the old wood scraping against the concrete floor with that same sound it made 30 years ago. Some things never change. Except the man pushing the door, he'd changed, gotten older, weaker in some ways, but not in all ways. Inside, the garage was exactly as I'd left it 3 months ago, before I'd signed the house over to Philip, before I'd trusted him with everything I'd spent a lifetime building. His BMW sat in the center bay, pristine and expensive. $70,000 of German engineering that he'd bought 6 months ago. Around the same time, he'd started talking about cash flow problems at Comfort Construction, the business I'd built from nothing and handed him 5 years earlier. I'd worried about those cash flow problems, lost sleep over them, offered to come back and help, but Philip had waved me off. I've got it under control, Dad. You've earned your rest. Rest. That's what he'd called it when he'd suggested I sign the house over for estate planning purposes. It'll save on taxes when you're gone, he'd said, and you'll still live here. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. I stood there in the dim garage, surrounded by my old tools, the ones Philip never used, and felt something crack open inside my chest. Not my heart. That had already broken on the porch. This was something deeper, older, the part of me that had survived poverty, survived my father's fists, survived building a business from a pickup truck and a toolbox, the part of me that knew how to fight. I moved past the BMW, past the expensive riding mower Philip had bought for the business but kept here, past the kayak nobody had used in 3 years. In the back corner was a metal shelving unit, industrial grade. I'd installed it myself in 1989, bolting it directly into the wall studs. I grabbed the side and pulled. It didn't move easily. I'm not as strong as I used to be. But I built this thing to last, which meant I built it to be moved if you knew how. 3 bolts, that's all that held it. I kept a socket wrench in the bottom drawer of my old workbench, the one Philip had shoved into the corner to make room for his golf clubs. 10 minutes later, the shelving unit stood at an angle, revealing the wall behind it. And there, exactly where I'd left it, was the panel. You wouldn't notice it if you weren't looking. The seams lined up with the wood grain. No nails visible. I'd used construction adhesive and pressure, let it cure for 2 days before painting it the same color as the rest of the wall. I'd built this hiding space in 1989, right after a break-in at the Comfort construction office. We'd lost some equipment, some tools. Nothing major, but it scared me. Made me realize that everything I was building could disappear in one night. So I built insurance. A place where the real important documents lived. The original contracts, the land deeds, the incorporation papers. Everything that proved what I'd built and how I'd built it. I'd forgotten about it for years. Life moved on. The business grew. Philip grew up. The memories of those early, desperate years faded into comfortable success. Until tonight, when I stood outside my own home and desperation came rushing back. The panel came loose with a scraping sound. Behind it was a crawl space, maybe 3 feet deep, carved into the space between the garage wall and the exterior, insulated, dry. I reached inside and pulled out the fireproof lockbox. It was heavier than I remembered. My hands were shaking. From the cold, from adrenaline, from something I didn't want to name yet, as I tried the key. The same key I'd kept on my keychain for 30 years, never removing it even when I forgot what it opened. The lock clicked. Inside, the smell of old paper and dust. And there, exactly as I'd left them, documents. Stacks of them. Every major contract from the first 15 years of Comfort construction. Every receipt. Every bank statement from the years when every dollar mattered. But there was something else. Something I'd forgotten I'd saved. A handwritten letter, folded in half, dated November 15th, 2019. Philip's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. The same slanted letters he'd used on birthday cards, on the thank you note after I'd paid for his college, on the card he'd given me when he'd taken over the business. I unfolded it. Dad, I know I don't say this enough, but I need you to know, everything I have, everything I am, I owe to you. You gave me more than a business. You gave me a legacy, a name that means something in this town. This house, your house, will always be your home, no matter what. Even when I take over the deed for estate purposes, nothing changes. You'll never have to worry about where you'll live, where you belong. I promise you that. I love you, Dad. Philip. I read it 3 times, sitting on the cold garage floor, while my son ate Christmas dinner in the house I'd signed over to him 3 months ago. The house he'd just locked me out of. Nothing changes, he'd written. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the box. Then I started pulling out the other documents, the ones I hadn't looked at in years. And that's when I saw it. A manila envelope I didn't remember. No label. Sealed. I tore it open. Inside were bank statements. But not from the 1980s. These were recent. From the last 6 months. Comfort Construction's business account. How did these get in here? I hadn't opened this box in years. Unless... Then I remembered. 6 months ago, Comfort had sent me copies of some documents. Comfort, my attorney, my friend. The woman who'd helped me build the business, who'd handled every major contract, every legal issue for 30 years. Philip had told me to ignore them. Just duplicate records, Dad. Administrative stuff. I'll handle it. But I'd put them somewhere safe, somewhere I'd forgotten. Until now. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight, spreading the statements across the floor. 3 transactions stood out. July 2024. Wire transfer, $340,000, to an account I didn't recognize. September 2024. Wire transfer, $275,000. Same account, November 2024, wire transfer, $418,000. Same account, over $1 million moved out of the company I'd built. My hands had stopped shaking. Everything inside me had gone very, very still. I photographed every statement, every page, every number. Then I kept digging. More documents, more transfers, more names I didn't recognize on paperwork that should have only had Philip's signature and mine. Except my signature was on some of these documents. I could see it right there, clear as day. But I'd never signed them. I know my own signature. I've signed it 10,000 times. The way I make the loop on the C in Carter, the way the S in Sam connects to the A. Small things, unconscious things. This signature was close, but it wasn't mine. Someone had forged it. And there was only one person who'd ever been close enough who'd watched me sign documents enough times to copy it. I sat there on that garage floor, surrounded by the evidence of my son's betrayal, and I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a young man with nothing but a dream and a toolbox. I felt dangerous, not violent. I'd never been a violent man, but dangerous in the way that comes from having nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Philip thought he'd locked me out, but he'd just unlocked something in me he should have left alone. I gathered every document, every statement, every piece of evidence, and put it back in the lockbox. Then I noticed something else in the corner of the crawl space. A small USB drive wrapped in plastic. A label in my own handwriting. Insurance, 2018. I didn't remember putting it there, but I knew what it meant. Back in 2018, after a dispute with a contractor who'd tried to claim I'd shorted him on payment, I'd installed security cameras in the Comfort construction office. Recorded everything for 6 months until the dispute was settled. Then I'd forgotten about the cameras, forgotten about the footage. But apparently, at some point I'd saved it, hidden it, just in case. I pocketed the USB drive and sealed the crawl space, put the shelving unit back, left the garage exactly as I'd found it. Then I walked to my car, got in, and sat there for a long moment, staring at the house I'd built, the house where my family was celebrating Christmas without me. I started the engine. I had a call to make. You want to know what's on that USB drive, don't you? So did I. And what I found when I watched it, what I saw my own son doing in that office when he thought nobody was watching, it didn't just break my heart, it armed me. But I'm going to be honest with you right now. I can see the view count climbing, and I'm grateful for every single person who's chosen to listen to an old man's story. But I need something from you. I need you to subscribe. Right now, before we go any further. Because the next chapter is where everything explodes. Where you find out who else was involved in stealing from me. Where names you thought were safe turn out to be poison. And I need to know you're really with me for this. That you want to see justice done, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been betrayed by someone they trusted. Hit subscribe. Smash that like button. Drop a comment telling me, what would you do if you found out your own child had been stealing from you for years? I spent Christmas night in a motel room, the Comfort Inn off Route 9. The irony wasn't lost on me, spending the night in a place called Comfort while my own son celebrated in the home I'd given him. I sat on the edge of the bed, the lockbox open beside me, my laptop balanced on my knees. The USB drive felt heavy in my hand, heavier than it should have been for something so small. I plugged it in. The folders loaded slowly. Dates from 2018. Security camera footage from the Comfort construction office, organized by month. November. That's when Philip had first started talking about taking on more responsibility. When he'd asked me to start stepping back, letting him handle the day-to-day operations. I'd been proud. My son, ready to carry the torch. I clicked on November 12, 2018. 11:47 p.m. The footage was black and white, grainy but clear enough. The camera angle showed my office, the big desk I'd bought used in 1985, the filing cabinets against the wall, the framed photo of Philip's high school graduation. The timestamp ticked forward. 11:48. 11:49. Then the office door opened. Philip walked in. Not alone. Andy was with him. and behind them I could see Stephanie in the hallway, her phone pressed to her ear. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart beating harder now. Philip went straight to my desk, pulled open the drawer, the locked one, except it wasn't locked because I'd given him a key 2 months earlier when he'd said he needed to access some contracts quickly. He pulled out the folder marked Corporate Accounts. Andy stood by the door, watching the hallway. Lookout. Philip spread the papers across the desk, took out his phone, and started photographing every page. Bank statements, account numbers, routing information, everything someone would need to move money that wasn't theirs. The footage was silent, but I could read their body language. This wasn't panic. This wasn't desperation. This was routine. They'd done this before. Stephanie appeared in the doorway. She said something to Philip. He nodded, kept photographing. Then another figure moved past the camera angle. Smaller, younger. Jaden. My 17-year-old grandson was there, standing watch in the hallway like this was normal, like helping his father steal from his grandfather was just another Tuesday night. I watched for 23 minutes as they systematically went through my files, taking photos, replacing everything exactly as they'd found it. Then they left, turning off the office light, locking the door behind them. I sat there in that motel room, staring at the frozen frame of my empty office. My son, my best friend's son, the boy I'd mentored, my grandson, and Stephanie, the woman I'd welcomed into our family who I'd hugged at her wedding and told, "You're family now." They'd been planning this for 6 years. I clicked through more files, more dates, more footage. December 2018. They were back, this time with a laptop, copying files directly. March 2019. Philip at my desk again, but this time he was signing something. I zoomed in as much as the grainy footage would allow. He was practicing my signature on a notepad, over and over until he got the loops right. I had to close the laptop, had to stand up, had to breathe. The room felt too small, too dark, too quiet, except for the sound of my own breathing and the distant hum of the highway outside. 6 years. They'd been stealing from me for 6 years, and I'd been so focused on being a good father, on trusting my son, on not being the kind of man who questioned family that I'd missed every single sign. The cash flow problems Philip had mentioned last year? Probably because he'd been siphoning money. The times he'd encouraged me to take a break, stop checking the books so closely, because he didn't want me to notice. The way Stephanie always changed the subject when I asked about the business finances, because she knew exactly where that money was going. I picked up my phone. It was 2:17 a.m. on Christmas morning. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Comfort. Not the motel. Comfort Williams, my attorney. The woman who'd been there from the beginning, who'd helped me incorporate the business in 1985, who'd reviewed every major contract, who'd become more than just my lawyer over the years, she'd become my friend. Philip had been pushing me to stop using her. "She's too expensive, Dad. We can use someone cheaper." But I'd kept her on retainer for personal matters, even after Philip took over the business accounts. Now I knew why he'd wanted her gone. I texted her, "Comfort, it's Sam. Emergency. I need you first thing tomorrow. I have evidence. This is serious." 3 dots appeared almost immediately. She was awake. "I'm here. Whatever you need." 9 a.m., my office. I'll be there. I set the phone down and went back to the laptop. There were more files I hadn't opened yet. One folder caught my eye, labeled simply Transfers. Inside were scanned documents, bank records. But these weren't from 2018. These were recent, from the last 3 months, and they showed something that made my blood freeze. The account receiving all those transfers, the one that had taken over $1 million from Comfort Construction, it wasn't in Philip's name. It wasn't in Stephanie's name either. The account belonged to a company I'd never heard of, Belmont Development Corporation. I searched it on my phone. Delaware Corporation, filed 6 months ago. Owner listed as a registered agent. a legal placeholder that hid the real ownership. But there was an address. A business address in the same office park where Comfort Construction used to lease space. Suite 240. Right next door to where my business had been. Someone had set up a shell company right under my nose, funneled my money into it, and I'd had no idea it even existed. I kept digging. More documents, more transfers. And then I found something that changed everything. A scanned copy of the sale agreement for Comfort Construction. My business, the company I'd built from nothing, that I'd poured 40 years of my life into, had been sold, 3 months ago, to Belmont Development Corporation, for $2.3 million, and my signature was on the sale documents. Except I'd never signed them. I'd never agreed to sell. I'd never even heard about a sale. Philip had forged my signature and sold my entire company without my knowledge. The sale had closed on September 15th. The same week he'd asked me to sign the house over to him for estate planning. He hadn't just taken the house. He'd taken everything. And he'd done it with a smile, with reassurances, with promises that nothing would change. I sat there in the dark, in a motel room that cost $79 a night, while my son slept in the house I'd built with money he'd stolen from me. But here's what Philip didn't understand about me. He'd grown up comfortable. He'd never known what it meant to have nothing, to fight for every dollar, to build something from raw determination and scarred hands. He thought I was weak now, old, easy to manipulate. He forgot who taught him everything he knew, and he forgot that the man who builds something from nothing knows exactly how to take it back. I closed the laptop and lay back on the motel bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I'd call Comfort. We'd review everything, build a case. But tonight, I let myself feel it. All of it. The betrayal, the rage, the grief of losing my son. Not to death, but to greed. And underneath it all, something cold and sharp and focused. They'd locked me out. Now I was going to show them what happens when you underestimate a man who's already lost everything that matters. Comfort Williams' office smelled like old books and coffee. She'd been practicing law for 43 years, longer than I'd been in business, and her office reflected it. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, diplomas from schools that mattered, photos of cases won, buildings built, lives changed. She'd helped me with my first contract in 1985, reviewed the papers when I bought my first work truck, held my hand through the incorporation process when Comfort Construction became official. I'd named the company after her. She'd been that important to me. Now she sat across from me at her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose, going through the documents I'd spread in front of her with the kind of focused intensity that reminded me why she'd never lost a case that mattered. "How long has this been going on?" she asked quietly. "At least 6 years, maybe longer." She picked up the sale agreement, read it, read it again, set it down carefully. "Sam, this is fraud, forgery, identity theft, elder financial abuse. We're talking multiple felonies here. Philip could go to prison for this." Prison. My son. In prison. I must have made a sound because Comfort looked up at me, her expression softening. "I know this isn't easy, but you need to understand what we're dealing with. This isn't a family disagreement. This is systematic theft, and it's not just Philip. I know. Andy, Stephanie, even Jaden. Yes, but there's something else." She pulled out her laptop, turned it so I could see the screen. "I did some digging this morning after you texted me. Belmont Development Corporation, the company that supposedly bought Comfort Construction. I traced the ownership. The registered agent is a front, standard practice for hiding real ownership. But there are ways to dig deeper if you know where to look. Corporate filings, tax documents, cross-referenced business licenses." She clicked through several screens, showing me documents I didn't fully understand but recognized as official. Legal. Real. Belmont Development Corporation is owned by another shell company. That company is owned by a trust. And that trust... She paused, looking at me carefully. That trust is administered by Randolph Crane. The name meant nothing to me. Who's Randolph Crane? Stephanie's father. The room went very quiet. Stephanie's father owns the company that bought my business? Not just owns it. He's been planning this for at least a year, probably longer. The corporation was filed 11 months ago. The trust was established 14 months ago. This wasn't opportunistic, Sam. This was calculated. I sat back in the chair, trying to process what she was telling me. So this wasn't Philip's idea. I think Philip was a tool. Stephanie's family saw an opportunity, an aging contractor with a successful business, a trusting relationship with his son, and they engineered a takeover. They got Philip to do the dirty work, probably convinced him it was for his own good, for his family's future. He still did it. He still forged my signature. Yes, he did, and he's responsible for that. But I want you to understand the full picture here. Stephanie's father, Randolph Crane, is a real estate developer, not a small one. He owns property all over the state. And Comfort Construction? You owned, contracts with municipalities, relationships with suppliers, a reputation that's worth more than just the equipment and the accounts. She pulled up another document. 2 weeks after the sale closed, Belmont Development Corporation was awarded a $4.7 million municipal contract to renovate the courthouse complex, a contract that Comfort Construction had been bidding on for 2 years. They used my company's credentials. They used everything: your reputation, your license, your relationships. They didn't just steal your business, Sam. They stole your identity and used it to build their empire. I stared at the documents spread across the desk, the evidence of my son's betrayal, of Stephanie's family's greed, of 6 years of lies. What do I do? Comfort removed her glasses, rubbed her eyes. When she looked at me again, I saw something I'd rarely seen in her: anger. Legally, we have options: criminal charges, civil suit. We can get restraining orders, freeze assets, force them to return everything. With this evidence, we can destroy them. But that's the nuclear option. It's going to be public, messy. It's going to tear your family apart in ways that can't be repaired. Your grandchildren will see their parents arrested. Your son will lose everything: his freedom, his reputation, any future he thought he had. He locked me out of my own house on Christmas Eve. I know, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying you need to understand what you're starting here, because once we file these charges, there's no going back. I thought about Philip, about the little boy who used to follow me around construction sites, wearing a plastic hard hat that was too big for his head. The teenager who'd helped me remodel the kitchen, who'd learned to measure twice and cut once. The young man who'd asked me to walk Stephanie down the aisle when her own father couldn't make it because of some business emergency that I now realized was probably just contempt for his daughter marrying a contractor's son. How had we gotten here? There's another option, Comfort said quietly. We can leverage this, privately. Give Philip and Stephanie 72 hours to return everything: the house, the business, every dollar they took. If they comply, we don't file charges. You get your life back, and they learn a very expensive lesson about consequences. And if they don't comply? Then we go nuclear: criminal charges, civil suit, everything. I looked at the evidence again: the forged signatures, the shell companies, the systematic theft. Set up a meeting, all of them: Philip, Stephanie, Andy. I want them in a room where they can't run, can't hide. When? Tomorrow, December 27th. I'm tired of spending nights in motels. Comfort nodded slowly. I'll arrange it, but Sam, you need to prepare yourself. When we show them this evidence, when they realize you know everything, they're not going to apologize. They're going to fight. Good, I said, standing up, because I've been fighting my whole life. They forgot that. They thought I was just some tired old man they could push aside. I picked up the sale agreement with my forged signature. They locked me out and celebrated without me. Now I'm going to show them what it feels like to lose everything. Comfort stood too, came around the desk. For a moment, I thought she might hug me, but instead she put her hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone in this, Sam. You've never been alone. You just forgot for a while." I nodded, not trusting my voice. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Belinda, my 16-year-old granddaughter. "Grandpa, where are you? Mom won't tell me anything. Are you okay?" The only one who noticed I was gone. The only one who cared. I texted back, "I'm okay, sweetheart. I promise. I'll explain everything soon." Then I sat in my car and made a decision. Whatever happened in that meeting tomorrow, whatever it cost me, I was getting my life back. Not for revenge. For dignity. For the right to stand in my own house without permission. For every person who'd ever been made to feel invisible by the people who were supposed to love them. Philip thought he'd won. He had no idea the storm that was coming. Tomorrow is the meeting. The moment where everything comes out. Where Philip and Stephanie and Andy see the evidence. Where they realize the old man they locked out isn't as helpless as they thought. But before we get there, I need something from you. I can see thousands of you watching. Some of you have subscribed. Some of you have commented, sharing your own stories of betrayal and survival. And every single one of those stories reminds me why I'm telling mine. But I need more of you to commit, to subscribe, to hit that notification bell, because next is the confrontation. It's the moment where the truth explodes, and it's going to be raw. Subscribe right now if you want to see Philip's face when he realizes he's been caught. Like this video if you believe in fighting back with truth instead of violence. Comment and tell me, would you give your family a chance to make it right, or would you go straight to the police? Your answer might surprise you. Mine surprised me. Now, let's dive into it. December 27th, 10:30 a.m. Comfort's conference room had windows that overlooked the town square. Through them, I could see the Christmas decorations still up, families walking past with shopping bags, people living normal lives where sons didn't betray fathers and trust still meant something. I'd arrived 30 minutes early. Sat in the same chair I'd sat in dozens of times over the years, discussing contracts and business deals and mundane legal matters that seemed important at the time. Nothing had ever been this important. Comfort sat beside me, her files organized, her expression professionally neutral. But I'd known her long enough to see the anger underneath. She didn't just see this as a case, she saw it as personal. At 10:03, they arrived. Philip walked in first. He looked tired, thinner than I remembered. When he saw me sitting there, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe guilt, but it disappeared quickly, replaced by the defensive mask I'd seen too often lately. Stephanie followed, perfectly composed, hair-styled, the kind of woman who never let anyone see her sweat. Andy came in last, staying near the door like he might need to run. They sat across from us. No one spoke. Comfort broke the silence. "Thank you for coming. I've asked you here on behalf of my client, Samuel Carter, to discuss some serious irregularities we've discovered regarding Comfort Construction and Mr. Carter's personal assets." "Dad, what is this?" Philip's voice carried just the right note of confusion. Practiced. "If you had concerns, you could have just called me." "I did call you," I said quietly. "On Christmas Eve. You didn't answer." "We've been over this. It was a private family dinner." "In my house?" The words hung in the air. Stephanie shifted in her seat. "Sam, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Philip and I have been trying to protect you, to manage things so you wouldn't have to worry." "Protect me?" I almost laughed. "Is that what you call it?" Comfort slid the first document across the table. The sale agreement for Comfort Construction. "This document shows the sale of Sam's company 3 months ago for $2.3 million to Belmont Development Corporation. Can you explain why Sam was never informed of this sale?" Philip picked it up. His hands were steady, but I saw his jaw tighten. "Dad signed off on this. It's right there, his signature." "That's not my signature," I said. "Of course it is. It's a forgery, and I can prove it." I pulled out my phone, opened the security footage, and set it on the table facing them. November 12th, 2018, 11:47 p.m. My office. I pressed play. The blood drained from Philip's face as he watched himself rifling through my files, watched Andy standing guard, watched himself practicing my signature over and over. Stephanie's composure cracked. Just for a second, but I saw it. Andy stood up. "I need to go." "Sit down, Mr. Hawkins," Comfort said coldly. "You're not going anywhere until we're finished." He sat. I played more footage, different dates, different thefts, a systematic pattern of betrayal spanning 6 years. When it ended, the room was silent except for the hum of the heating system. "You stole from me," I said, my voice steady. "For 6 years, you came into my office, my business, my home, and you took everything I built. You forged my signature. You sold my company to a shell corporation owned by your father-in-law." I looked directly at Stephanie. "You used my son to steal my life." "It wasn't supposed to be like this," Philip said quietly. His voice broke. "Stephanie's father said. He said you were getting older, that you'd forget, that we were securing our future." "Philip." Stephanie's voice was sharp, a warning. But Philip kept talking, the words spilling out like he'd been holding them in for years. "He said you'd be taken care of, that you'd never know, that it was just business, just moving assets around. I didn't think." "You didn't think at all," I said. "You followed orders. You betrayed your father because someone convinced you it was smart. I'm sorry." Philip was crying now. Actually crying. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did hurt me. You locked me out of my own house on Christmas Eve while you celebrated with my money in my home." Stephanie stood up. "This is ridiculous. You can't prove any of this would hold up in court. That footage is years old. The signatures could be disputed. You're just a bitter old man who can't accept that his son is more successful than he ever was." The mask was off now. The real Stephanie. The one who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle. Comfort smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "Mrs. Carter, I've been a lawyer for 43 years. I know exactly what will hold up in court. And I promise you, every piece of evidence we have is admissible, documented, and devastating. The forgery, the shell companies, the systematic theft. Elder financial abuse carries significant penalties in this state. We're talking felony charges, prison time, and not just for Philip." She slid another document across the table. "Your father, Randolph Crane, set up Belmont Development Corporation specifically to receive stolen assets. He's complicit. Andy participated in the theft, also complicit. And you, Mrs. Carter, have your name on the receiving accounts. You're all looking at criminal charges." The confidence drained from Stephanie's face. "However," Comfort continued, "Mr. Carter doesn't want to destroy his family. Despite everything you've done, he's offering you a choice." She placed a new document on the table. "You have 72 hours to return everything. The house deeded back to Sam. Comfort Construction returned to his ownership. Every dollar you've taken, returned with interest. If you comply, Mr. Carter won't press criminal charges. And if we don't," Stephanie's voice was ice, "then we file charges tomorrow morning, criminal and civil. We pursue maximum penalties. And we make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what you did." Comfort leaned forward. "Your father's real estate business? It won't survive the scandal. Philip's reputation? Destroyed. Your children will watch their parents go to trial for elder abuse. Is that what you want?" Andy spoke for the first time. "I'll return everything, whatever you need. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm so sorry." He stood and walked out. Smart man. Philip was still crying. "Dad, please, I'll fix this. I'll make it right." "You can't fix this, Philip," I said quietly. "You can return what you stole, but you can't fix what you broke." Stephanie grabbed Philip's arm. Don't say anything else. We need to talk to our own lawyer." "You have 72 hours," Comfort repeated. "The documents are ready to sign. Return everything, or face the consequences." They left. Philip looked back once, his face destroyed, but Stephanie pulled him forward. When the door closed, I sat back in my chair, suddenly exhausted. "You did the right thing," Comfort said softly, "giving them a chance." "Did I?" I looked at her. "Or am I just being weak again?" "You're being a father. There's a difference." My phone buzzed, a text from Belinda. "Grandpa, can I see you? Please?" I showed Comfort. She nodded. "Go. I'll handle the paperwork. If they're smart, they'll sign everything by tomorrow." I stood, picked up the lockbox with all the evidence. "And if they're not smart? Then we go to war, and we win." They returned everything in 68 hours. The house, the business, every dollar with interest. Andy sent a personal check with a note I didn't read. Philip and Stephanie signed the transfer documents without a word, their lawyer present to make sure everyone stayed civil. I own everything again, legally, officially. But standing in my house on New Year's Eve, my house with my name on the deed, I feel emptier than I did in that motel room on Christmas. The furniture is the same. The photos on the walls haven't changed. But the people in those photos? They're strangers now. I could have destroyed them. Comfort had the papers ready. One signature and Philip would have faced criminal charges. Stephanie's father would have lost everything. Their perfect life would have shattered in ways that couldn't be repaired. But here's what I learned, standing outside my own house in the cold. Revenge doesn't keep you warm. My phone rings. Belinda. "Grandpa, can I come over?" "Of course, sweetheart." She arrives 20 minutes later, her eyes red from crying. We sit in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I taught her to make pancakes when she was 6. "I didn't know," she says immediately. "I swear, Grandpa. I had no idea what they were doing." "I know. I saw the footage. You weren't there." "Mom and Dad won't talk about it. They just packed up and moved to a rental across town. Jaden acts like nothing happened, but Her voice breaks. "I can't pretend. What they did to you isn't your fault," I finish. "You're not responsible for your parents' choices." "But I'm their daughter. Their choices define me." "No," I say firmly. "Your choices define you. What you do next, that's what matters." She wipes her eyes. "What are you going to do next?" Good question. I look around the kitchen. The house feels too big now, too full of memories that hurt more than comfort. "I'm going to start over," I hear myself say. "Small, honest, build something new." "The business?" "Comfort Construction is legally mine again. But I don't want it, not like it was. I'm thinking smaller, just me. Maybe 1 or 2 people I can trust." I look at her. "You still like building things?" She blinks. "What?" "You used to help me fix things around the house. You were always good with your hands, curious about how things worked." "I'm 16, Grandpa. I don't know anything about construction." Neither did I when I started. I learned by doing, by failing, by getting up every time I got knocked down. I lean forward. "I'm 70, Belinda. I don't have another 40 years to build an empire, but I have time to teach someone who actually cares what it means." "You want to teach me?" "If you want to learn, no pressure, no expectations, just an old man who remembers what it felt like to build something with his own hands and wants to pass that on to someone who won't use it to hurt people." She's quiet for a long moment. Then, "When do we start?" "How about next week? Small job. Deck repair for a neighbor. Easy work. We'll see if you like it." She smiles. The first real smile I've seen in weeks. "Okay, yeah, I'd like that." After she leaves, I walk through the house, room by room, remembering. Philip's bedroom, where I read him stories every night, the living room where we opened Christmas presents, the garage where I taught him to change oil. All of it's still here, but the meaning has changed. My phone buzzes. "Philip, Dad, can we talk? Please? I stare at the message for a long time. Part of me wants to ignore it, to let him sit with what he did, to make him feel the silence the way I felt it on Christmas Eve. But I'm tired of silence. I call him. Dad. His voice is broken, smaller than I've ever heard it. I'm listening. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. What I did, what we did, there's no excuse. Stephanie's father convinced me you were declining, that we were protecting the business, but that's not true. I was weak. I was greedy. I wanted the easy path. I don't say anything. You gave me everything, he continues, and I threw it away for money I didn't need and approval from people who didn't matter. I destroyed the one relationship that actually meant something. Yes, I say quietly, you did. Can I ever? Is there any way to fix this? I finish. No, Philip, you can't fix this. What's broken stays broken. I hear him start to cry. But, I continue, and his breath catches, broken things can still be useful. A cracked foundation can be reinforced. A damaged beam can be supported. It's never the same as it was, but it can still stand. What does that mean? It means you're not in prison. Your kids still have a father. You have your life. What you do with it now, that's up to you. Do you hate me? The question hangs in the air. Do I? No, I say finally. I don't hate you. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. I'm angry. But I don't hate you. You're still my son. That doesn't change, even when everything else does. Can I see you? Sometime. Not yet, maybe not for a long time, but someday, when you figured out who you want to be without Stephanie's father telling you, without me carrying you, when you've learned to stand on your own. Okay, he whispers. I understand. Philip. Yeah? The door stays locked for now, but doors can be opened again, just not by the same key. I hang up. Outside, fireworks start going off. New Year's Eve celebrations. People welcoming a fresh start. I stand at my window, watching the colors burst across the sky, and I think about doors. The one Philip locked on Christmas Eve. The one I opened in the garage, finding the evidence that changed everything. The one I'm choosing not to close completely, even though part of me wants to. And the new door I'm opening with Belinda, teaching her not just how to build, but why it matters. They locked me out because they thought I was finished. Used up. Easy to discard. They forgot that the man who builds something from nothing doesn't need their permission to start again. I'm 70 years old. I've lost my son, at least for now, but I found something else. The knowledge that my value doesn't come from what people take from me. It comes from what I choose to build next. Tomorrow, Belinda and I start a deck repair. Small work, honest work. The kind of work I started with 45 years ago, when all I had was a truck and a dream, and hands willing to do the labor. I'm back where I started, and somehow that feels like exactly where I need to be. The locked door didn't end my story. It just showed me which doors actually matter. Thank you for listening, for being here, for reminding me that telling the truth matters, even when it hurts. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever been betrayed, rebuilt, or had to choose between revenge and redemption, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel. Not for me, but for everyone else out there who feels invisible, who's been locked out of their own life, who needs to hear that starting over isn't the same as giving up. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances, not for the people who hurt you, but for yourself. And most importantly, drop a comment. Tell me your story. Tell me what door you're choosing to open next. Because here's what I've learned. We all get locked out sometimes. By people we trust. By circumstances we can't control. By our own mistakes. But we're not defined by the doors that close. We're defined by what we choose to build after. I'm Carter. Most people call me Sam. I'm 70 years old, and I'm just getting started. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life you might change. Until next time, keep building, keep fighting, keep opening new doors.